Welcome to my channel, The World of Science Fiction. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.
The ice hummed. Kane Mercer pressed his gloved palm against the glacier wall, feeling the vibration travel through bone and muscle. Not the mechanical drone of his excavation rig parked 300 meters above. Not the wind screaming through the crevasse behind him. Something else. Something that pulsed like a heartbeat buried deep in frozen time. His headlamp cut a narrow cone through the blue-white darkness. Particles of ancient ice glittered in the beam like suspended stars. He'd been drilling into this section of the Korev Glacier for 6 days, following a thermal anomaly his scanner had picked up. Something warm, impossibly warm, 200 meters beneath the surface where nothing should be alive. The drill bit punched through another layer, and suddenly the wall opened into a pocket of air. Kane stumbled forward, nearly dropping his lamp. The chamber was massive, cathedral high. The walls curved into smooth arches that looked almost architectural, as if something had carved deliberate shapes into the ice millennia ago. Frost patterns spiraled across every surface in geometric precision. And in the center, embedded upright in the far wall like a specimen in glass, a body. Kane's breath caught. Arms, shoulders, long hair frozen in mid-drift around a face tilted slightly downward. The figure was enormous, nearly 3 meters tall, humanoid but impossibly proportioned. Too elegant, too symmetrical. Her skin was pale as the ice itself, almost translucent, and across her closed eyelids were thick plates of chitin, smooth and dark like polished bone. They covered her eyes completely, sealed shut with what looked like organic resin. She wore no clothing, but her body was marked with intricate patterns. Not tattoos, but something grown into the skin itself. Faint ridges of darker tissue that formed spirals and angular designs across her arms, shoulders, and torso. Kane stepped closer, his pulse hammering against his ribs. This wasn't an archaeological find. This was a fortune, a miracle, a body perfectly preserved for, he checked his scanner, 217 years, pre-collapse era, before the atmospheric wars, before the migrations, when the old government still kept secrets in places like this. He reached for his recorder, fingers shaking inside his thermal gloves. Kane Mercer, solo expedition, day 6. I've found, I don't even know what to call this. Human female, approximately 3 meters in height, preserved in glacial ice. Estimated age of encasement, 2 centuries minimum. Possible genetic modification or, the ice cracked, not from his drill. Not from pressure, from inside. Kane jerked backward, nearly tripping over his own equipment. The fissures spread across the surface of the cocoon like lightning. Small at first, then widening with sharp, brittle snaps that echoed through the chamber. A breath of warm air brushed his cheek. Impossible. The cocoon shattered. Chunks of ice fell away, crashing to the floor in crystalline explosions. The figure lurched forward, caught herself against the wall with one massive hand. Her chest rose and fell. Once, twice. Her mouth opened, drawing in air with a sound like wind through a tunnel. And then she spoke. Her voice was low, rough with disuse, but startlingly clear. Do I still look human? The words hung in the frozen air between them. Kane's mind went blank. He stared at her, at the sealed chitin plates covering her eyes, at the way her fingers gripped the ice wall with inhuman strength, at the slow rise and fall of her chest. She was alive. 200 years in ice and she was alive. The whisper came again, softer this time, almost vulnerable. Do I? And then the cavern itself seemed to echo her words back, repeating them from the walls in overlapping waves. Do I? Do I? Do I? Kane staggered backward, his boot catching on a chunk of fallen ice. He hit the ground hard, pain shooting through his tailbone. His lamp rolled across the floor, casting wild shadows that made her seem even larger, more impossible. She turned her head toward the sound of his fall, tracking him, despite the sealed eyes. You're awake, Kane managed, his voice cracking. How are you? She moved with sudden fluidity, rising to her full height. Her joints cracked like breaking stone, but she didn't wince. She stood there, towering over him, her head tilted slightly as if listening to something he couldn't hear. I am Isha, she said slowly, testing each word. Guardian of the cold sleep. Kane scrambled to his feet, keeping his distance. His hand found the handle of his cutting tool. Not a weapon, but better than nothing. Guardian of what? What is this place? Isha's head turned toward him again, precise and deliberate. Why did you unseal me? I didn't. I was drilling, looking for... He stopped, swallowed hard. You're 200 years old. You're a miracle, a fortune. You could buy me 10 lives if I bring you back to the settlements. The words came out before he could stop them. Brutal honesty born from 6 years of failed expeditions, of debts piling up like snowdrifts, of nights spent calculating how many more chances he had before he ended up working in the lithium mines. Isha was silent for a long moment. Then her mouth curved into something that might have been a smile, or might have been sadness. You still think I am alone in this ice? Kane froze. What? My kin slept with me. Her voice dropped lower, taking on a weight that made the air feel heavier. The seal was not meant to open yet. Kane's headlamp swept across the chamber, catching details he'd missed in his initial shock. Behind Aisha, carved into the far wall, 2 more alcoves, 2 more human-shaped spaces, both empty, both recently shattered. Chunks of ice lay scattered beneath them, still fresh enough that frost hadn't reformed on the broken edges. I'm not the first to find you? Isha's hand moved to touch the chitin plates covering her eyes, her fingers tracing their edges with something like sorrow. No. Someone woke the others earlier. They did not ask questions. They ran. She paused, her breath misting in the frigid air. I cannot run. I cannot see. Kane's pulse spiked. He spun, his lamp cutting across the chamber's entrance, the tunnel he drilled through to get here. The floor was disturbed, massive footprints, each one nearly half a meter long, pressed deep into the ice, fresh, leading deeper into the glacier, away from the surface. Someone else is down here, he whispered. Someone who freed them before I got here. Yes. The word fell like a stone. Kane looked back at Isha, at her blind face turned toward him with uncanny accuracy. What happened to them? Your kin? Where did they go? Aisha's jaw tightened. I do not know, but they should not have woken alone. We were meant to rise together, with purpose, with... The floor shook. It started as a low rumble, felt more than heard, then built into a roar that seemed to come from everywhere at once. The walls groaned. Cracks spiderwebbed across the ceiling. Kane threw himself against the nearest wall as chunks of ice began to fall, some as large as his torso. Cave in, he shouted, but his voice was swallowed by the thunderous collapse. Aisha moved faster than something her size should be able to move. She crossed the chamber in 3 strides, grabbed Kane by his jacket, and pulled him against her chest. Her other hand pressed flat against the wall, and for a moment Kane felt something, a vibration, a pulse, radiating from her palm into the ice itself. The collapse slowed, didn't stop, but slowed, as if the glacier itself was listening to her. Then it was over. Silence crashed down like a second avalanche. Kane gasped for breath, still pressed against Aisha's torso. Her heartbeat was slow, far slower than human, maybe 30 beats per minute, but steady and powerful enough that he could feel it through his thermal suit. She released him carefully, setting him down like a child. The entrance, Kane croaked. He spun toward the tunnel he'd come through, blocked, completely sealed with tons of collapsed ice and rock. No, 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 no. He ran to it anyway, clawing at the debris with his gloved hands, knowing it was useless, knowing he didn't have the equipment to dig through that much mass. Kane! Isha's voice cut through his panic. Kane, stop! He whirled on her. We're trapped. I have maybe 3 days of air in my suit recycler, and that's if I don't exert myself. I have no way to signal the surface. Nobody knows I'm down here. Someone else broke the chamber, Isha said quietly. Her hand was still pressed to the floor, palm flat, as if she were reading something through the ice. And they woke my kin. Wrong. Kane stared at her. What does that mean? Humans fled. My kin may not be themselves. You're saying they're dangerous. Isha's sealed eyes turned toward him. Even without seeing them, he felt the weight of her gaze. They are hungry. The words settled over him like a shroud. Kane's mind raced. He'd read the old reports, stories from the collapse era about genetic experiments, enhanced soldiers, biological weapons disguised as humanitarian projects. Things that looked human but weren't. Things that ate human. So it's not just monsters in these caves, he said slowly. No. Isha's voice cracked just slightly. There are my sisters. They moved through the tunnels together because there was no other choice. Aisha navigated by touch and sound, her fingers trailing along the walls, her head tilting to catch echoes Kane couldn't begin to interpret. She moved with surprising grace despite her blindness, her feet finding purchase on ice so smooth it looked like glass. Kane followed with his lamp and his scanner, marking their path, checking for thermal signatures that might indicate another way out. The glacier was a maze. Centuries of melt and refreeze had created a network of passages that twisted and doubled back on themselves. Without Isha's sense of direction, he'd have been lost in minutes. How do you know where we're going? He asked after they'd walked for nearly an hour. Vibration, temperature, the way sound travels through ice. I was trained for this. Trained? Before the ceiling. We were prepared for... She stopped mid-sentence, her head cocking to one side. Kane froze. What? Something moved, 3 tunnels ahead, large. His hand found his cutting tool again. Your sisters? I cannot tell yet. They kept moving, but slower now. The temperature was dropping, Kane's breath coming out in thicker clouds. His suit's heater hummed louder, working harder to compensate. The tunnel walls seemed to press inward, closer, tighter. Then Kane heard it, faint, almost imagined, a whisper. Not words, just breath, hungry breath, coming from somewhere ahead, or behind, or all around. Isha suddenly grabbed his shoulder, pulling him to a stop. Wait. Kane's heart hammered. The whisper grew, became a sound like claws on ice. Multiple sources, moving fast. What is that? Not my kin, Isha said. Her voice had gone flat, emotionless. Cave predators. They evolved in the deep places, blind. Hungry, they hunt by sound. You're telling me there are actual monsters down here. Everything that survives in this ice is a monster in some way. She tilted her head again. They are circling. They know we are here. Kane's scanner picked up movement, thermal signatures, at least a dozen of them, coming from multiple directions. They were big, maybe not as big as Aisha, but big enough. We need to move, he said. Not yet. If we run, they will chase. We must mask our presence first. Isha crouched, pressing both palms to the floor. That same vibration radiated outward, subtle but persistent. The walls around them began to groan, ice crystals forming and reforming in rapid patterns. The thermal signatures on Kane's scanner hesitated, scattered. Some retreated. How did you... We were made to command the ice, Isha said simply. She stood, pulling him forward. Move, now, while they are confused. They ran, footsteps echoing through the narrow passage. As they ran, something huge moved in the darkness above them. Silent, massive, matching their pace through the ice ceiling. Kane caught the shadow of it from the corner of his eye. Too big, too close. It never descended. But it followed. Or rather, Aisha ran and pulled Kane along like luggage. His legs burned trying to keep pace with her massive strides. The tunnel twisted sharply left, then right, then opened into a wider passage. Kane's headlamp caught something on the wall. Deep gouges. Fresh. What made those? He gasped. My kin. Territory markers. That's bad. Yes. The passage narrowed again. Kane had to turn sideways. His suit scraped against ice. How much further? He asked. Unknown. The ice has changed since we slept. Great. So we're lost. No. I know the resonance, the facility is... Isha stopped. Be quiet now. Why? What? Kane. Silence. But his voice had already carried, echoed, bounced down 3 different passages. His scanner lit up. Thermal signatures. Dozens. All converging. Shit, Kane whispered. I'm sorry, I didn't... Run, now! The predators came screaming out of the darkness. What were you, he asked, before the ceiling? What were you made for? Isha was quiet for a long moment. We were meant to survive the end, she finally said. When the wars came, when the atmosphere turned toxic. We were designed to sleep through it all and wake when the world was ready. But you woke up blind. We sealed our own eyes before sleeping, so we would not have to watch the world die. Her hand touched the chitin plates. The last thing I saw was snow, falling through searchlights. I wanted to remember beauty, not fire. Kane opened his mouth to respond, but his scanner shrieked in alarm. Thermal signatures, massive, multiple, converging on their position from ahead and behind. Isha, I feel them. Her voice had gone cold. We are surrounded. The tunnel ahead split into 3 paths. Kane's lamp swept across them frantically, left narrow, twisting, but his scanner showed the white-hot signatures of cave predators massing in the darkness. Center wider, with what looked like better airflow, but the walls were covered in those deliberate claw marks, fresh enough that ice crystals still clung to the gouges. Right, steep downward slope, disappearing into blackness. His scanner showed nothing, either clear or so deep the signal couldn't penetrate. Which way? Kane's voice came out higher than he intended. Isha's head turned slowly, sampling each path. All of them lead to death. That's not helpful. Left, predators will tear us apart in minutes. Center, my sisters will find us. Right, I sense heat below. Volcanic vents perhaps, or... She stopped. Something alive, very large, and very old. Kane's hands were shaking now. We can't just stand here. No. Isha's fingers closed around his shoulder, gentle but firm enough he couldn't have pulled away if he tried. We go center. That's where your sisters are. Yes, and they are still my kin. There is a chance, a small one, that they will remember what they were, that they will see me and remember. And if they don't, Isha's jaw tightened, then we die to family instead of strangers. It is the better death. Before Kane could protest, she pulled him into the center tunnel. The claw marks grew denser, overlapping. Some were old, the edges softened by frost. Others were fresh, so fresh that Kane could see where chunks of ice had been torn away and scattered across the floor. The temperature rose slightly, not much but enough that Kane's suit heater cycled down a notch. His scanner picked up trace organics in the air. Breath, sweat, something that smelled faintly of copper and salt. They are close, Isha whispered. Do not make sudden movements. Do not speak unless I tell you to. Kane nodded. His throat was too tight for words anyway. The tunnel opened into another chamber, smaller. The walls rough, chewed through rather than carved. Debris on the floor, broken equipment, shredded suits, a human skull. And in the far corner, movement. 2 figures, tall, pale, wrong. One gnawing on something, the other listening, head tilted at an impossible angle. Their eye plates were torn away. Raw tissue, clouded eyes that saw nothing but tracked everything. Aisha's hand tightened on Kane's shoulder. Do not move! The figure that had been gnawing suddenly snapped its head toward them. Its nostrils flared. Its mouth opened, revealing teeth that were too sharp, too numerous. And it smiled. Sister, it rasped. The word was barely recognizable, mangled by a throat that had forgotten how to shape language. Sister came home. Isha took one careful step forward, pulling Kane with her. Vera, it is Aisha. Do you remember? The creature tilted its head, too far, vertebrae cracking audibly. Isha, yes. Isha slept. Isha was good. Isha was... The second figure rose from its crouch. It moved like something filmed in reverse, smooth but fundamentally wrong. When it spoke, its voice was a low grinding sound. Isha brought food. Kane's blood turned to ice water. No, Isha said firmly. This is Kane. He is not food. He woke me. He is... She paused, searching for the word. Necessary. The creatures looked at each other. Some wordless communication passed between them. Then they looked back at Aisha and Kane, heads moving in perfect synchronization. Aisha is different, the first one said. Isha still remembers. Yes, I remember what we were meant to be. We remember hungry. The second creature took a step forward. We remember cold. We remember. Alone. You were not meant to wake alone, Aisha said, and Cain heard genuine anguish in her voice. You were supposed to wake with me, with purpose. But someone, a sound cut through the chamber, sharp, echoing, metal on ice. All three of the giantess's heads snapped toward the sound. From the tunnel behind them came a figure, human-sized, wearing a thermal suit similar to Cain's, but marked with corporate insignia. He held a weapon Cain recognized, a seismic hammer, the kind used for large-scale excavation and demolition. The man saw them and froze. "Oh, fuck," he whispered. And then he ran. The two feral giantesses moved instantly. They dropped to all fours and surged forward with terrifying speed, their bodies undulating like snakes, their blind eyes somehow tracking the fleeing human with perfect precision. "Wait," Isha started, but they were already gone, disappearing into the tunnel with a chorus of scraping claws and hungry breathing. Isha stood there for a moment, trembling. Then she sank to her knees, her hands pressed to the ice floor. "They will kill him," she said quietly. "They will tear him apart and eat him alive." Cain didn't know what to say. His mind was still reeling from seeing those creatures, those things that had once been like Aisha, that had once been designed to save humanity. "We have to keep moving," he finally managed, "before they come back." Aisha nodded slowly. She stood, her movements heavy with something that looked like grief. They left the chamber through a side passage, moving quickly now, no longer bothering with stealth. Behind them, echoing through the ice, came a scream. Human, terrified, cut short, then silence. Cain's hands were shaking so badly he could barely hold his lamp steady. "What happened to them? Why are they like that?" "Hunger," Isha said. 2 centuries of starvation, even in suspension. The seals were meant to sustain us completely, but something failed. They woke early, starved, mad with need. Without guidance, without memory, they became... She stopped. "They became what you saw. Could that happen to you? If I wake alone? If I lose purpose?" She turned her sealed eyes toward him. "My pod was intact. Theirs ruptured centuries too early. They starved in suspension. Bodies awake, minds dormant, hunger the only thing that remained. That is why I need you to survive. You are my anchor to humanity, to what I was meant to protect." Cain swallowed hard. "I'm not exactly humanity's finest specimen. I'm a tomb raider, a scavenger. I was going to sell you." "But you stayed," Isha said softly. "When you could have run, when you should have run. You stayed and spoke to me like a person. That is more human than many I knew before the sealing." They walked in silence for a while, the only sounds their breathing in the occasional crack of settling ice. Cain's suit reported his air supply, 63 hours remaining. Enough time to find another exit, if one existed, if they weren't killed first. The tunnel began to slope downward. The walls changed texture, becoming smoother, almost glassy. The temperature rose noticeably. Cain's scanner picked up geothermal activity ahead, heat rising from somewhere deep below. "We are approaching the lower chambers," Isha said, "the places where my people did their final work before the sealing." "What kind of work?" "Preparing the resurrection. We stored genetic samples, cultural records, seed banks, everything humanity would need to rebuild after the collapse." Cain's breath caught. "All of that is down here? Do you know what that's worth? What people would pay for? It is not for sale." Isha's voice went hard. "It is not for profit. It was meant to be a gift to the future, a chance to avoid the mistakes that destroyed our world." "Your world is dead," Cain said quietly. 200 years dead. Whatever you stored down here, it's irrelevant now. Humanity survived without it." "Did you?" Isha stopped walking, her head tilting toward him. "Or did you simply learn to live in the ruins?" Cain opened his mouth to argue, then closed it. "She wasn't wrong. Even if what you stored could help," he said, "how would you distribute it? Who would you trust?" "I would..." Isha paused. Her hand flew to the wall, pressing flat. "Quiet. Something is coming." Cain's scanner lit up. Multiple signatures moving fast, coming from the tunnel ahead. Not the cave predators, these were different. Organized, moving in formation. "Your sisters," he whispered. "No, these are..." Isha's voice went tight. Humans, armed, moving with military precision. What? How did they get down here? The collapse triggered seismic alarms. Helix followed the quakes. The first figure appeared in Kane's lamplight. A woman, mid-30s, wearing combat-rated thermal gear. She held an electromagnetic rifle, the kind designed to punch through reinforced armor. Behind her came three more. Two men, one woman, all armed, all moving with the practiced ease of private security contractors. Their leader locked eyes with Kane and Isha. Her weapon didn't waver. "Step away from the subject," she said calmly. "Hands visible. No sudden movements." Kane raised his hands. "We're not..." "Quiet." The woman's attention shifted to Aisha. Subject designation Isha 7, Guardian Class Genetic Experiment, property of Helix Corporation, registered under pre-collapse international salvage law. You are considered recovered assets. Isha's hands curled into fists. "I am not property. The law disagrees." The woman gestured to her team. "Secure her. Non-lethal rounds. We want her intact." Two of the soldiers raised their weapons. Some kind of net gun, Kane realized, designed to tangle and immobilize large targets. Isha moved. She grabbed Kane and pulled him behind her, using her body as a shield. Her other hand slammed into the ice wall, and that vibration, that pulse, radiated outward with enough force that Kane's teeth rattled. The ceiling groaned. "Don't!" the lead woman shouted. "If you collapse this section, we all die." "Then leave," Isha said coldly. "I am not yours to take." "You don't understand. Helix Corporation has invested billions in recovering subjects like you. You're one of only 3 confirmed survivors. We're not leaving without..." The ice above them cracked. Not from Isha, from something else. Everyone looked up. A shape moved in the darkness above, massive, spider-like, with too many limbs and eyes that glowed a faint, sickly green. One of the cave predators, but far larger than the ones Kane had seen before. An alpha, maybe, or something that had been feeding well. It dropped. The lead soldier didn't even have time to scream. The creature landed on her with enough force to crater the ice beneath them. Its limbs, 6 of them, each ending in hooked claws, wrapped around her torso and pulled in opposite directions. The soldier came apart like wet paper. Her team scattered, firing wildly. The electromagnetic rounds punched holes in the ice, sending shards flying. One of them hit the creature dead center in its massive eyes. It shrieked, a sound like metal tearing, and lunged for the nearest human. "Run!" Isha shoved Kane toward a side passage. "Now!" Kane didn't argue. He ran, his legs pumping, his breath coming in ragged gasps. Behind him, the sounds of combat, screaming, weapons fire, the wet crunch of breaking bones. Aisha followed, moving backward, keeping herself between Kane and the chaos. One of the soldiers, the younger woman, came stumbling out of the massacre, her suit torn, blood streaming from a gash across her face. She locked eyes with Kane. "Help!" The creature's claw punched through her chest from behind. Kane turned away and kept running. The tunnel twisted sharply, then opened into a vertical shaft. Kane's lamp illuminated a drop that disappeared into darkness. Easily 50 meters, maybe more. His scanner showed no bottom. "Isha, we can't..." She grabbed him and jumped. Kane's stomach lurched into his throat. Wind screamed past his helmet. The walls of the shaft blurred. He had just enough time to think, "This is how I die," before Aisha's feet hit something solid. They were on a ledge, narrow and slick with ice, jutting out from the shaft wall about halfway down. Isha's knees bent to absorb the impact. Then she straightened, still holding Kane like he weighed nothing. Above them, the sounds of combat faded, replaced by a new sound, scraping. Multiple sources, coming down the shaft. "They are following," Isha said. "The predators. They have our scent." "Can you jump again?" "Not from here, the angle is wrong. We will have to climb." She set Kane down and immediately started moving along the ledge, her fingers finding holes in the ice that Kane couldn't even see. He followed, pressing himself against the wall, trying not to look down at the abyss below. The scraping grew louder, closer. Kane glanced up and immediately regretted it. 3 of the creatures were descending the shaft, their claws finding purchase in the sheer ice, their glowing eyes fixed on him and Aisha. "Faster," he gasped. "I am blind," Aisha snapped back. "I cannot move faster without dropping you." The ledge narrowed to barely a handspan. Kane's boots slipped. His hand shot out, grabbing a jutting shard of ice. It held, barely. One of the creatures dropped from the wall and landed on the ledge behind them. The impact sent vibrations through the ice. Kane felt his foothold crack. Isha spun, putting herself between Kane and the creature. It lunged. She caught it midair with both hands, her fingers sinking into its carapace. The creature shrieked and thrashed. Isha's muscles bunched. Kane could see them moving beneath her skin like cables, and she twisted. The creature's body came apart. She threw the pieces into the abyss, but the motion had unbalanced her. Her foot slipped. For one heart-stopping moment, Isha teetered on the edge. Kane grabbed her arm. Futile, useless, his weight nothing compared to hers, but Isha used the contact to steady herself. She found her balance, her breathing harsh. "Thank you," she said quietly. "For what?" "I didn't do anything." "You tried." The other two creatures were still coming. Isha looked up at them, her sealed eyes somehow tracking their movement through vibration or sound or whatever sense she used. "We cannot fight them here. The ledge will not hold." "Then what?" "Trust me." Isha grabbed Kane again, this time in a different grip, arms wrapped around his torso, his face pressed against her shoulder. Then she leaned backward and fell. They plummeted. The shaft walls screamed past. Kane couldn't breathe, couldn't think, could only hold on as gravity took them. Above, the creature's shrieks Dopplered away. Then Isha's hand shot out and caught something. A pipe, corroded and ancient, jutting from the wall. Their fall arrested violently. Kane's ribs compressed against Isha's arms. Pain flared through his chest. She swung, building momentum, then let go. They arced through the air and hit another ledge. This one was wider, more stable. Isha tucked into a roll, absorbing the impact, protecting Kane's body with her own. They came to a stop against a wall. Kane gasped for air, his ribs screaming. "Are you insane?" "Possibly." Isha stood, checking him for injuries with her hands. "Nothing broken. You are fortunate." "Fortunate? We just fell, and we are alive. That is the definition of fortune." Kane couldn't argue with that. He looked around. They were in another tunnel, this one wider and showing signs of construction. Support beams, old lighting fixtures, ventilation ducts. This had been built, not carved by nature. "Where are we?" Isha pressed her hand to the wall, reading it. "The old facility, the place where we were created and sealed. This is..." She paused. "This is home." Something in her voice made Kane's chest tighten. Not fear, something else. Sadness, maybe, or longing. They walked deeper into the facility. The construction became more apparent. Concrete walls reinforced with metal, doors hanging open on rusted hinges, corridors lit by the faint bioluminescent moss that grew in patches on the ceiling. Isha moved with increasing confidence here. She knew this place, remembered it, even blind. "How long were you down here?" Kane asked. "Before the sealing." 5 years we lived here, trained here, prepared for the long sleep. There were 37 of us. Guardians, we were called. Designed to wake when humanity needed us most. But only 3 of you survived. 4. There is one more I have not sensed. Perhaps she still sleeps. Or perhaps... Isha stopped mid-sentence. Her hand flew to the wall. "Kane, there is something ahead." "Your sister?" "No, something else. Something that should not be here." They approached cautiously. The corridor opened into a large chamber, what must have been a control room once. Screens covered the walls, most of them dark, but a few still flickered with static. In the center of the room stood a figure, human, male, mid-50s, wearing a Helix Corporation uniform. He was working on a console, his fingers moving rapidly across an ancient keyboard. He heard them and turned. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then the man smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. "Isha 7, Guardian Class, Designation, Cold Sleep." "Remarkable. I'd hoped we'd find you intact." Isha's posture shifted, becoming defensive. "Who are you?" "Dr. Marcus Volkov. I'm with Helix Corporation's Pre-Collapse Asset Recovery Division." He gestured at the screens around him. "I've been looking for this facility for 6 years. Your sisters led us here in a way. They've been active." "They are not well," Isha said flatly. "They woke wrong, without guidance. Yes, I gathered that from the bodies we found. 23 dead, and that's just what we've discovered so far. Chen's expression didn't change. But that's fixable. We have the resources to rehabilitate them. You mean to control them. I mean to help them. The genetic modifications in your bodies, they're worth more than every settlement on this continent. We could cure diseases, extend lifespans. He paused and something flickered across his face. Something that looked almost like regret. My daughter died of genetic cascade failure. She was 7. If I'd had access to subjects like you 10 years ago. By dissecting us, Isha said quietly. Volkov's jaw tightened. By studying you. There's a difference. Kane stepped forward, his hand on his cutting tool. She's not going with you. Volkov's eyes flicked to him, dismissive. And you are? The person who woke her. The person she's staying with. Ah, the independent contractor, Kane Mercer, correct? We pulled your claim registration from the territorial database. Solo expeditions, mostly unsuccessful, significant debt to 3 different creditor institutions. Volkov's smile returned. Helix could make that go away. All of it. Plus a finder's fee, let's say 2 million credits. Enough to buy yourself a comfortable life topside. The number hit Kane like a physical blow. 2 million. He could pay off his debts, buy real equipment, maybe even a small HAB unit in one of the better settlements. He'd never have to crawl through a glacier chasing thermal anomalies again. He looked at Aisha, at her sealed eyes, at the way she stood slightly in front of him, still protecting him even now. No, he said. Chen's eyebrow raised. No? She's not property. I'm not selling her. You already admitted you planned to. What changed? Kane didn't have a good answer for that. Or maybe he did, but it wasn't one that made rational sense. She's a person. That's what changed. Volkov sighed, the sound heavy with disappointment. I was hoping we could do this civilly. He pressed something on the console. The chamber's doors slammed shut, heavy, reinforced, the kind designed to contain something dangerous. I'm sorry, Volkov said, and he almost sounded sincere. But Helix has invested billions recovering subjects like you. You have no legal rights under current territorial law. The facility is already being secured. My team will be here within the hour. Isha's fingers tightened on Kane's shoulder. Rage barely contained. Where is the 4th guardian? She asked, her voice dangerously soft. Volkov's expression flickered. Just for a moment, but Kane caught it. Uncertainty, maybe fear. The 4th subject is secured, in the lower levels. She woke earlier than the others, and we've been studying her capabilities. Very enlightening research. You tortured her. We gathered data. Volkov's voice hardened. She's an experimental subject from a defunct government program. She has no legal rights under current territorial law. Neither do you. Isha's fingers tightened on Kane's shoulder. Not hard enough to hurt, but enough that he felt the tremor running through her hand. Rage, barely contained. How long? She asked, her voice dangerously soft. Excuse me? How long have you had her? 3 months since we first breached the facility. She's been very cooperative. The lie was obvious. Isha's jaw clenched. Take me to her. Volkov laughed. That's not how this works. You're in a locked room with no weapons, no exits. You'll wait here until... Isha's palm hit the floor. The vibration that pulsed outward was different this time. Stronger, more focused. Kane felt it in his bones, in his teeth, in the hollow spaces of his skull. The concrete floor cracked. The cracks spread, racing toward the walls, climbing up like lightning. Chen stumbled backward. What are you? Stop! You'll bring the whole facility down. Then you should not have locked us in. The walls groaned. Chunks of concrete began to fall from the ceiling. The screens shattered, one after another, erupting in sparks and smoke. You're insane, Volkov was shouting now, backing toward one of the sealed doors. You'll kill us all. Perhaps, but you will not have my sister. Kane grabbed Aisha's arm. Wait, he's right. If you collapse this place, we're dead too. Isha turned her sealed eyes toward him. Some things are worth dying for. Not if there's another way. Kane looked at Volkov. The lower levels. How do we get there? Volkov's face had gone pale. I'm not... Another pulse. Another crack in the walls. How do we get there? Kane repeated. Volkov pointed with a shaking hand toward a service hatch in the corner. Emergency access shaft. Leads down 3 levels. But it's not safe. The structure's compromised. And your fourth guardian, she's not stable. She'll kill you. She is my sister, Isha said. She will remember me. Your sisters upstairs didn't remember you. They tried to eat your friend here. They woke alone and mad with hunger. But if one of us was kept alive, kept conscious, Isha paused, she will remember. Kane wasn't so sure, but he didn't see a better option. They moved to the service hatch. It was sealed with an old mechanical lock, but Isha's fingers tore through it like paper. The hatch opened onto a vertical shaft with a rusted ladder descending into darkness. Behind them, Volkov fumbled with something at his belt. A radio. Security, this is Volkov. Subjects are breaching containment. Heading to sub-level 3. Full lockdown protocol. Isha moved. One massive hand closed around Volkov's wrist. The radio clattered to the floor. You are not innocent in this, and she said quietly. You knew what you were doing. You knew she was a person, and you cut into her anyway. I'm a scientist. I was following orders. Yes, that is what they all say. Isha's grip tightened. Kane heard bones creak. Tell your people to leave the facility. All of them. You have 1 hour. She released him. Volkov collapsed, cradling his wrist. You won't get away with this, he gasped. Helix will hunt you. They'll find you, and when they do, then I will die free, Isha said simply. It is more than you gave my sister. They descended. The ladder was never meant for someone Isha's size. She had to move carefully, her weight making the ancient metal groan with each rung. Kane went first, his lamp illuminating the shaft below. The walls here were older, showing signs of water damage and geological stress. They were going deep, far below the facility's main levels. How do you know she's still alive? Kane asked as they climbed. I can feel her, Isha said. Faintly. A resonance. We are connected in ways the humans who made us never fully understood. If she had died, I would know. They reached the bottom. The ladder ended at a narrow platform overlooking a corridor that had partially flooded. Dark water covered the floor, its surface disturbed by ripples from sources Kane couldn't identify. We will have to wade, Isha said. Kane checked his suit's integrity. Still sealed. Probably. How deep? Not deep for me. Perhaps chest high for you. Great. Kane stepped into the water and immediately regretted it. It was cold, not freezing, but well below comfortable. His suit's heater kicked into overdrive, struggling to compensate. Isha moved through the water with ease, her hand trailing along the wall for guidance. The corridor branched multiple times, but she navigated without hesitation, following that resonance only she could feel. They passed through rooms that had once been laboratories. Examination tables, rusted and tilted. Monitoring equipment, long dead. In one room, Kane's lamp caught a pile of bones in the corner. Human. Multiple individuals, based on the number of skulls. Research subjects, Isha said quietly. Before us. The failed attempts. Jesus. They were trying to create the perfect survivor. Someone who could endure anything, adapt to anything. They went through hundreds of attempts before achieving success. And you just accepted that, knowing what they did to make you? We did not have a choice in our creation, but we had a choice in our purpose. We chose to be guardians, not weapons. We chose to sleep and wake for humanity's future, not its past. The water grew deeper. Kane was swimming now, his boots no longer touching bottom. His suit's buoyancy compensators kept him afloat, but barely. Isha walked beneath the surface, her head still above water, pulling Kane along when the current tried to carry him away. The corridor opened into a massive chamber, a natural cavern that the facility builders had partially incorporated into their structure. The ceiling soared overhead, lost in darkness. And in the center, suspended by chains attached to the walls, a body, the fourth guardian. She hung crucified, her arms spread, chains wrapped around her wrists and ankles. Her body was covered in scars, surgical incisions, sample sites, places where flesh had been removed and allowed to heal. Her eye plates had been torn away like the Pharaoh's sisters, but her eyes were different. not clouded. Clear and aware and full of rage. She raised her head as they approached. "Isha," she whispered. Her voice was raw, damaged. "You woke! Kara!" Isha waded toward her sister. "I am here. I am sorry. I am so sorry." "They cut me," Kara said conversationally, as if discussing the weather. "They wanted to know how we heal, how we adapt. They would cut and watch and take notes. Very thorough, very scientific." Kane's stomach churned. Up close, he could see the extent of the damage. Dozens of incisions, all in various stages of healing. Some were fresh, hours old maybe. Others had healed to scars, only to be reopened again. "We will free you," Isha said. She reached for the chains. "No!" Kara's voice sharpened. "If you free me, I will kill everything in this facility, every human, every living thing. I will not be able to stop myself." "You are stronger than that." "I was. Once. But 3 months, Aisha. 3 months awake and in pain and alone. They took everything from me. My purpose. My memories. My mercy." Kara's eyes focused on Kane. "He smells like fear, like weakness. I could tear him apart with my hands. I want to. The need is—" She stopped, shuddering. "You have to kill me." "No." "Then leave me here. Let me die on these chains. It is kinder." Isha's hand touched her sister's face, gentle despite the size difference. "I did not wake to abandon you. I did not survive to let you suffer alone." "Then you are a fool." "Perhaps." Isha turned to Kane. "Leave. Find the exit. I will free her and keep her contained until she can remember herself." Kane didn't move. "You can't hold her alone. Not if she's as far gone as the others." "I must try. Then I'll help." "You heard what she said. She will kill you." "Probably." Kane took a breath. "But you freed me from that collapse. You kept me alive in the tunnels. You didn't let your sisters eat me, even though it would have been easier. I owe you." "You owe me nothing. I did what any person would do." "Exactly." Kane moved closer to Kara. "Any person, not any guardian, not any experiment. Any person. You taught me that. Now let me help you prove it to her." Isha was quiet for a long moment. Then she nodded. Together they broke the chains. Kara fell into Isha's arms. For a moment she was still. Then her body convulsed. Her mouth opened in a scream that wasn't quite human. Raw and primal, and full of centuries of pain compressed into months. She lunged for Kane. Isha caught her, wrapping both arms around her sister's torso, pinning her arms. Kara thrashed, her strength terrifying. She was smaller than Isha, but what she lacked in size she made up for in feral desperation. "Kara, stop! Let me go! Let me kill! Let me—" Kane backed away, his cutting tool in hand. Useless. Completely useless against something like Kara, but he held it anyway. Isha pressed her forehead against Kara's, her sealed eyes close to her sister's ruined ones. "I am here," she whispered. "I am real. You are not alone anymore. Kara, please. Remember. Remember the gardens. Remember the night before the sealing. Remember what you said to me." Kara's struggling slowed. What did I say?" "You said we would wake together. You said no matter how long it took, no matter what changed, we would wake together and we would remember what it meant to be human." "Human," Kara repeated. The words sounded foreign in her mouth. I don't remember what that means." "It means this." Isha held her tighter. "It means staying. It means choosing not to hurt, even when you want to. It means hope, even when hope seems foolish." Kara shuddered. Tears ran down her ruined face, mixing with the filth and blood. "They took everything." "No, they took much, but not everything. You still know my name. You still know we are sisters. That is not nothing." Slowly, agonizingly slowly, Kara's body relaxed. The tension drained out of her muscles. She sagged against Aisha, exhausted. "I am so tired," she whispered. "I know. Rest. I have you." Kara's eyes closed. Her breathing deepened. In moments she was unconscious. Real sleep, not the violent blackout of pain overload. Aisha lowered her carefully to the ground, then looked at Kane. Even without seeing her eyes, he could tell she was near collapse. "We need to move," he said gently. "Chen's people will be coming." "I know," Isha picked up Kara, cradling her like a child. "Can you find the way out?" Kane checked his scanner. It was picking up multiple tunnel systems, most of them flooded or collapsed. But there, a thermal signature that suggested moving air, an exit, or at least a path to one. "This way." They moved through the facility, slower now with Kara's unconscious weight. Behind them, Kane heard sounds, voices, equipment, the organized chaos of a corporate security team moving into position. "They are coming," Isha said. "Can you fight?" "Not while carrying her, and I will not leave her." Kane's mind raced. They couldn't fight. They couldn't hide. Not with 3-meter-tall targets. They needed something else. His eyes caught on a valve, old and corroded, jutting from the wall. Next to it, a warning sign, emergency coolant release. "Isha, can you trigger a controlled collapse?" "Yes, but not to bury them, to seal them in. If we flood the lower levels and collapse the access tunnels, they'll have to retreat. It'll buy us time." Isha turned her sealed eyes toward him. "That will destroy the facility, everything my people built. All the genetic samples, the records, everything meant to rebuild humanity. Or we let Helix take it, use it for profit instead of progress. Which is worse?" Isha's jaw tightened. Then she nodded. She set Kara down carefully, then pressed both palms to the floor. The vibration started deep, deeper than before, resonating through layers of bedrock. The facility's walls began to crack. "Run," Isha said. "I will follow when it is done." Kane grabbed her wrist. "Together. You can maintain the pulse while we move, right?" "It will be difficult. Good thing you're not alone anymore." They ran. Isha kept one hand trailing along the wall, maintaining that pulse, directing the collapse. Behind them, the sounds of pursuit turned to shouts of alarm. The ceiling began to cave. Water poured through new fissures, flooding the corridors they'd just left. They burst out of a service tunnel into open air, real air, cold and thin and utterly perfect. Night had fallen. Stars wheeled overhead, more than Kane had ever seen. The facility's entrance was 100 meters below, carved into a cliff face, already disappearing under a cascade of ice and stone. Isha collapsed to her knees, breathing hard. Kara stirred in her arms. "Where?" Kara's voice was weak. "Where are we?" "Outside," Isha said. "Free." Kara's ruined eyes opened. She turned her face toward the sky, toward the stars she couldn't see but could feel, the vast openness after months of confinement. Is it beautiful?" Isha's sealed eyes turned upward as well. "I cannot see it, but Kane can. Kane, tell her." Kane looked up, found words inadequate. "Yeah," he finally said. "Yeah, it's beautiful." They stayed like that for a long time. 3 impossible beings breathing air that should have killed them, looking at or toward or remembering a sky full of stars. Then Isha stood, still holding Kara. "We should move. They will dig out. They will come after us." "Where do we go?" Kane asked. "Away, somewhere cold, somewhere they cannot easily follow." "There's a settlement," Kane said. 3 days north, off the grid. They don't ask questions about anyone who shows up. I know someone there who owes me a favor." "And the favor is large enough to hide 2 giants?" Kane managed a tired laugh. "I once pulled his kid out of a collapsed mine shaft. So yeah, I think he'll make room." They started walking. The glacier stretched before them, blue-white under the stars. Behind them, the facility groaned its last and collapsed entirely, sealing its secrets under 1,000 tons of ice and stone. After an hour of walking, Kara spoke again. "Isha." "Yes?" "I wanted to kill the human, the male. I still want to, a little." "I know, but I will not, because you asked me to remember, and I remember we chose to be more than what they made us." "Yes, that is enough." Kane kept quiet, listening to the 2 sisters talk, about the past, about the people they'd been, about the world they'd slept through, and the one they'd woken to. Their voices were soft but carried far in the frozen air. After another hour, Kara fell silent, asleep again, but peaceful this time. Isha turned her sealed eyes toward Kane. "You were afraid," she said, "when I freed her, when she lunged at you. But you did not run." Would running have helped? No. Then what would be the point? Isha was quiet. Then, you are a strange human, Kane Mercer. Thanks, I think. It was a compliment. They walked through the night. Kane's suit temperature gauge dropped steadily, but he had enough charge to make it to the settlement. Probably, if he didn't push himself too hard, if they didn't run into any predators, if a dozen other things went right. But for the first time in years, Kane felt something other than desperation driving him forward. Hope, maybe, or just the stubborn refusal to let the universe win. They reached the settlement on the morning of the fourth day. It was small, maybe 300 people, living in prefab hab units clustered around a geothermal vent. The kind of place where everyone was running from something and nobody cared what. Kane's contact, a man named Victor, built like a cargo hauler, took one look at Isha and Kara and didn't ask a single question. Just nodded and pointed them toward an old maintenance warehouse at the edge of the settlement. Stay here. I'll bring food. Don't go outside in daylight. People talk. He was gone before Kane could thank him. The warehouse was huge and mostly empty, just old mining equipment and sealed crates of supplies. Isha set Kara down carefully on a pile of thermal blankets. Kara was awake now but weak. The damage from her captivity was more than physical. She flinched at sudden sounds, refused to sleep unless Isha was touching her. She will need time, Isha said quietly, to heal, to remember who she was. What about you? Kane asked. Do you need time? Isha touched the chitin plates covering her eyes. I have had 2 centuries. I think that is enough. She smiled, small and sad. 11 days passed. Enough for wounds to heal, but not enough for danger to die. Kane worked odd jobs around the settlement. Isha and Kara stayed hidden in the warehouse. At night, Kane returned with food and news. Helix Corporation had posted a recovery bounty, 10 million credits for escaped genetic assets. Kane's name was wanted for asset theft. On the second night, Kane heard voices from the bar. Rough, drunk. 10 million for those genetic freaks. Big ones, like old war experiments. Saw a drone yesterday, military grade. They're looking. Kane kept walking, heart hammering. On the 5th day, a Helix drone appeared over the settlement. It hung there, silent, scanning. Kane watched from the supply depot, frozen. The drone's sensor array rotated slowly. Thermal imaging, he realized. Mapping heat signatures. It drifted toward the warehouse district, stopped directly above their building, hovered for 30 seconds that felt like 30 minutes. Then it banked away, disappearing north over the glacier. Kane ran back to the warehouse. They scanned us, he said. Thermal imaging. Isha was already standing. How long? Hours, maybe less. On the 7th day, a man stopped Kane near the supply depot. Older, weathered. Mercer saw tracks from the North Ridge. Big ones. Real big. Ice shift, Kane said quickly. These were footprints, 3 meters apart. The man stepped closer. You bring something down from the ice? Just salvage. The man studied him. Helix has drones circling. They're paying good money for tips. He walked away. That evening, a child wandered too close to the warehouse. Kane saw him through the door, peering through a wall crack. The boy didn't freeze. He screamed, and someone heard him. Voices rose in the street, running footsteps. Kane moved fast, stepping outside, closing the gap. Hey, kid, you lost? The boy stared, tears on his face. I saw something big, inside, with eyes like old mining equipment. Looked scary in the dark. Kane crouched. Come on, let's find your parents. He walked the boy back, aware of eyes on them. Suspicious, calculating. When he returned, Isha was near the door. He saw me. I know. We leave tonight. You should go, Isha said when he told her. Distance yourself from us. Take the credits you have earned and start over somewhere else. And leave you here? We are not your responsibility. Kane set down the food he'd brought. Actual fresh vegetables, a luxury in this settlement. You're right. You're not my responsibility. You're my friends. There's a difference. Isha tilted her head. Friends. Yeah, people who save each other. People who don't abandon each other when things get hard. That's what friends do. Kara, who'd been silent, spoke up. He is right, Isha. We are no longer alone. Neither is he. That is, she paused, searching for the word. That is good. That night, Kara asked them about the stars. Describe them, she said. I want to know what they look like. Cain tried. He talked about the colors, the patterns, the way some were bright and others were faint. He talked about how they moved across the sky, about the feeling of insignificance and wonder they inspired. And the sun? Kara asked. When it rises, what does that look like? I will tell you, Isha said softly. I remember the sun. Before they sealed my eyes. It was warm and bright, and when it rose, it turned the whole world gold. Like everything was new. Like every day was a promise. For a second, Cain wanted to tell her she looked more human like this, protecting her broken sister, describing a son she would never see again, than anyone he'd met topside. More human than the scavengers in the bars. More human than Volkov with his dead daughter and his billions. More human than Cain himself had been 6 days ago. But he stayed quiet. Some things didn't need saying. I would like to see that, Kara whispered. Someday. Perhaps you will, Isha said. Perhaps we will find someone who can repair what was taken from us. Or perhaps, Cain said, you learn to see in other ways. You've done pretty well so far. Kara was quiet for a moment. Then Cain. Yeah? If I had killed you, when Isha first freed me, would she have forgiven me? Cain looked at Isha. She met his gaze, or seemed to, despite the sealed eyes. No, Isha said simply. I would not have. Kara absorbed that. Good. I would not want you to. But you did not kill him, Isha continued. You chose not to. That is what matters. Not the impulse, but the choice. It is harder than I expected. Being a person instead of an impulse. Yes, it always has been. 11 days. Not long enough to forget. Not long enough to feel safe. Kara grew stronger. The wounds healed. She flinched less at sounds. Slept without screaming most nights. She started helping around the warehouse. Learning to navigate by touch and sound like Isha. Cain's credits were running low. He checked his scanner, planning the next move. Isha approached. Cain, I need to ask you something. What's wrong? Nothing is wrong, but I have been thinking about purpose. Isha sat beside him, the floor groaning under her weight. We were created to be guardians, to wake when humanity needed us. But the world we woke to needs something else. What? I do not know. That is what I am asking you. What does this world need? Cain thought about the settlements, the corporate vultures, people like him, desperate and alone. Hope, he said finally. People need hope. And how do we give them that? Help people. People trapped and scared. People who need saving. Isha was quiet. Then, you are proposing we become rescuers. Why not? You're strong enough to dig through anything. I know the settlements, the bureaucracy. We could... He stopped. Sorry, stupid idea. No, Isha said slowly. It is purpose. Real purpose. Not the one we were given, but the one we choose. She stood, her sealed eyes turned upward. We will do this. But first we must find the others. The 2 sisters who still live. Cain's stomach dropped. The feral ones. Isha, they're my family. I will not leave them to die alone. Her voice was firm. I could not save them before. But now I have you. I have Kara. Perhaps together, we can do what I could not do alone. Cain looked at her face, at the determination there. She was doing this with or without him. All right, he said. We find your sisters, but we do it smart. We prepare. Agreed. Isha paused, her hand pressed to the floor. Cain, 2 of my sisters are still alive. I can feel them, and they're moving. Cain's blood went cold. Toward us? No. Isha's voice dropped. Away. They spent the next 2 days preparing. Victor helped acquire supplies, thermal gear, climbing equipment, medical kits, food for a month. He didn't ask questions, but Cain saw the curiosity in his eyes. On the night before they were set to leave, Kara pulled Cain aside. Thank you, she said quietly. For what? For convincing my sister that humans can be good. She needed to believe that. After everything we saw before the sealing, after what was done to me, She needed evidence that not all of you are, she stopped, that some of you are worth saving. I'm not that good, Kane said. I was going to sell her, remember? But you did not. When it mattered, you chose differently. That is what makes the difference. Kara's ruined eyes looked in his general direction. We were designed to be guardians. But who guards the guardians? Who reminds us why we are worth saving ourselves? I guess you found your answer. Yes, I guess we did. Kara was quiet for a moment. Then her voice dropped, became something else, something that made Kane's blood run cold. If you ever die, Kane, she tilted her head, she will erase this world down to bedrock. You understand that, yes? Kane swallowed hard. Yeah, I understand. Good, then stay alive. For all of us. She paused, then softer. And if you ever forget you're human, Aisha, I'll remind you. The way he did. Isha's sealed eyes turned toward her sister. Neither of them spoke, but something passed between them. Understanding, recognition, a promise. They left at dawn. The glacier stretched before them, blue and white and infinite. Somewhere in that frozen expanse, two more giants wandered. Lost, hungry, dangerous. But no longer alone, because Kane and Aisha and Kara were coming for them. Not as rescuers and rescued, not as human and experiment, but as people who had chosen each other, who had decided that survival meant more than just not dying. It meant making something worth surviving for. Aisha lifted her face toward the rising sun, feeling its warmth on her sealed eyes. Do you remember what you asked me? Kane said. When you first woke. In the ice, yes. Do I still look human? Yes. And do you know what the answer is now? Isha was quiet for a long moment. Then she smiled, real and genuine and unguarded. Yes, she said. I do. They walked into the frozen waste together, three impossible figures against an impossible sky. Behind them, the settlement disappeared into the white. Ahead, two sisters waited, broken, lost, but not beyond hope. And somewhere in Kane's pack, still recording, his old data logger captured the last thing Aisha said before they disappeared into the ice. Log entry, final. After 200 years under the ice, the blind giant they called a weapon turned out to be the most human person I've ever met. The screen flickered once, then went dark.